is a great day. So we are definitely going to get this started. We just had to get started with our chants. Social housing now and pass the Community Land Act now. Today is a great day. I say today's a great day for community wealth building. Today is a great day for economic justice building. And it's so great to be a part of our dynamic advocates of New York City. So let me just get everything out the way right now before I bring out the dynamic council member Sanchez. We are here today to push for a new way of dealing with land in New York City. For far too long, profit has guided the development of our communities. That's right, say it louder. Pushing out our neighbors and creating the housing crisis we see today. Roll back the curtains. Your neighbors are no longer your neighbors. They're just simply investors. But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't need luxury condos. We do not need housing that enriches a few. We need a new way. We need a new way, as this being demonstrated. We are fighting for the Community Land Act, for social housing that is deeply affordable and controlled by us, community, that will support the creation of community wealth building and serve the common good. The Community Land Act and other bills heard today will provide new tools so that nonprofit developers and community land trusts will be able to acquire property and remove it from the cycle of speculation. So I'm going to ask a question for my dynamic advocates. What do we need? Social housing. What do we need? When do we need it? When do we need it? I now turn this portion over to our dynamic council member, Sanchez. Give her a hand clap.
Thank you. I'm little, so I'm gonna do that. No, let's give a round of applause for Mr. Albert Scott. Amazing. Of course, I literally just closed my speech. So you're gonna have to see me log into my computer. Oh no. Well, in the meantime, can you give us some chance while I log back in?
It will be my pleasure. Because you know I'm very shy. What do we need?
Social housing.
When do we need it?
Now.
When do we need it?
Now.
When do we need it?
Now.
What do we need?
Social housing.
You know it. And then I just need everyone to take in the dynamic optics from our dynamic advocates and see the verbiage, the nonverbal technically communication that's being displayed. Pass the Community Land Act. Social housing now. This is all about community wealth building. And now I turn it over to Councilmember Sanchez.
Amen. Thank you. So when I say housing is a, you say human right. Housing is a
human right.
Housing is a
human right.
Housing is a
human right.
That's right, and that's why we are here today. Good afternoon. I have been waiting for this moment since I began my quest to run for office.
Yeah.
This is a historic moment because you have folks coming together who truly want to fight for those New Yorkers, for those Americans. We're setting the stage, baby. We're setting a model. We want to fight for a country and for a city that responds to those who need the most from us. I want to thank Comptroller Brad Lander for your leadership on social housing.
Yes.
I want to thank my colleagues who are here, Councilmember Nurse, Councilmember Ressler, Councilmember Brewer, the Office of Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez. And we also want to thank our advocates, and I'm going to pass it over for you to thank our advocates for being here today.
Yes, we'd like to definitely thank our dynamic advocate from East Harlem, El Barrio Community Land Trust, Athena. Our dynamic group from Northwest Bronx Church and Community Coalition. And definitely our dynamic supportive group, ANHD. And of course, our dynamic group, Housing Justice for All.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So as some may know, this conversation has been long in the making. New York City and municipalities truly across our great nation are facing a dire housing crisis. It is not, and let me say that with so much force, it is not one that is felt equally by all New Yorkers or all those who call America home, but one with pain concentrated in communities of low income, in communities of color, and one that is felt by underrepresented people like persons living with disabilities, sexual and gender minorities, religious minorities, and others that feel it the most. And that this pain is felt differentially is widely documented. It's a function of the history of our great nation. Government and private sector policies like redlining that devalued certain communities because they housed people of color. Shout out to my council member, Rita Joseph. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Rita.
Investments. Investments like the GI Bill and favorable mortgage policies that, get this, invested more than $1 trillion in largely white families, excluded communities of color. And here we are today. I hear people talking about our inability as a nation, as a city, to solve the housing crisis because it's too expensive. Well, you know what else is crazy? Educating every single school child with free buildings, free books, teachers that we pay for. That is insane. How can we pay for all of that? We have a social compact. That social compact is to uplift those that are the most vulnerable among us. And that is the policy and the paradigm that we're here to talk about with so much love and so much excitement today. We have a president of the United States who has released a housing supply plan. Okay, all right, let's build more housing, yes. The governor's housing compact to build 800,000 units of housing across the state of New York. But for who? And how? And how is that going to make a difference? How are we going to change the dynamics that have been hurting and keeping feet and knees on people's necks? How are we going to change those paradigms with these investments? We have a mayor who has also put forth a housing agenda. Let's reduce red tape, says the housing blueprint. Let's reduce the barriers to building, says City of Yes. Okay, all right, yeah, let's do that. But how are we going to do it? And that is what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about a new paradigm, a different way of doing things, of uplifting social housing.
Yeah.
And so let's look at the city's assets in positive lights, in a positive light. We have, it's a bad thing, but let's turn it into a good thing. We have 15,000 units, 15,000 parcels of land in this city that are underutilized, that are largely vacant. We have over-leveraged properties because speculators have bought and bought and bought and leveraged and taken on debt, and that debt has come to cripple the backs of the New Yorkers who need it the most. But let's look at these negatives as positives, and let's see how we can turn those into opportunities for social housing. I am so thankful that it's not just me, it's not just the controller, it is a movement.
That's right.
It is a movement. It is my extremely talented and brilliant colleagues who are coming together to shift the paradigm. Today we have a package of legislation that is geared toward making this a reality, a land bank, prioritizing land trust, prioritizing mission-driven development, prioritizing community organizations. All of this we are putting into place to put communities at the forefront. So with that, I will begin the speaking program with our colleagues, but you know me, We got to fight because housing is a
Human right!
housing is a
Human right!
housing is a
Human right!
Thank you so much. So first up, I'm going to call up our New York City Comptroller, and we're gonna, in the spirit of this, we're gonna switch it out, advocates and elected officials. So first up, our Comptroller.
Great job. All right, when I say public land, you say for public good. Yeah, public land. For public good. Public land. For public good. Public land. For public good. Lincoln Wrestlers intro 637 is going to make it happen, y'all. All right. Good afternoon. It is so great to be out here. I want to start by thanking our brilliant and dynamic housing chair, Pirina Sanchez, for her leadership. We've got this amazing set of bills sponsored by council members Ressler and Nurse and Brewer and Carlina Rivera. And also so great to be out here with Rita Joseph and Councilmember Alexa Aviles. We got an amazing set of advocates, and I want to see, are there any Mitchell-Lama residents in the house? Yeah. All right. Are there any folks from Community Land Trust in the house? Are there any folks from Community Development Corporations in the house? We see you, Los Sures and St. Nick's. We got an amazing group of advocates, really from across the generations of affordable housing work in New York City. Look, you know what the housing crisis looks like. Every New Yorker knows it. After a brief dip at the beginning of the pandemic, asking rents for new units are $3,500 a month, and there's less than a 1% vacancy rate for units that rent at less than $1,500 a month. A third of New Yorkers pay more than half of their income for rent. More than 70,000 people will sleep in a homeless shelter tonight, including 20,000 kids. You saw that story in the New York Times a week back about the exodus of black New Yorkers, nearly a 10% decline in the last 10 years, and so much of that young people, young families who are thinking, hey, maybe in a prior generation, I could see how I could become a homeowner in the city. Maybe I could get a Mitchell-Lama unit and raise my family here. Seeing no opportunity to do that, we're losing the energy and creativity and diversity that drives this city. And as Comptroller, I'll tell you, I talk to a lot of business leaders as well, and they identify housing affordability as one of the key barriers to a growing economy. So the crisis has reached a pitch. And one thing that's good is a lot of folks are talking about it. So it's great that Albany has housing high on the list. We support, and I know one of the resolutions on the calendar today is to pass good cause eviction to make sure the tenants are protected from unfair eviction. There's a resolution in support of the Housing Access Voucher Program to make sure that folks in shelters and at risk of homelessness have a path to getting a voucher that could support them. And as Chair Sanchez said, I'm enthusiastic about the work to make sure that we are building new housing supply at a wide range of incomes so that we confront the supply and demand issues that make challenges in our housing market. But let's be clear, new market rate housing development, even if distributed equitably and even with tenant protections and some additional vouchers in place, it will not solve our affordability crisis. When you've got new units renting at $3,500 a month for people that can't even pay $1,500, you're not going to help folks in the neighborhoods facing eviction. The top 7 neighborhoods facing eviction in the Bronx, they're not going to be helped by new housing supply, and certainly not anytime soon. And look, how can we ask working class New Yorkers to support new housing development if they reasonably fear it's going to push them out of their neighborhoods, or that they don't ever see themselves having a chance to gain housing stability or build any equity in their homes? And that's where social housing comes in. You're going to hear a lot more about it, but social housing, maybe not everybody knows the term, but you know what it means because you've seen it in New York City. You know that Mitchell-Lama housing at Co-op City in the Bronx or at Penn South in Manhattan was a haven for a generation of working class families in New York. You know that the work community development groups did to bring their neighborhoods back from the abandonment of the 1970s, whether it was Bed-Stuy Restoration Corporation or Los Sures or Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement, when the market was not supplying the housing or taking care of neighborhoods in the way that was needed. social housing groups, created Mitchell-Lama limited equity co-ops, created nonprofit-owned affordable rental housing, created supportive housing that supplied the kind of housing that New Yorkers truly need and that the speculative for-profit development market fails in so many ways to provide. And look, when I came on the scene as a young affordable houser, it was a different situation. It was about a third. So about a third of the city's land and subsidy went to for-profit private developers, but about a third of it went to nonprofit developers like these CDCs, and about a third of it went to tenants so they could convert their buildings into limited equity cooperatives. But through the Giuliani and Bloomberg and de Blasio administrations, that shifted to now where about 80% of our precious public land or 80% of our precious public subsidy dollars for affordable housing goes to for-profit private developers. And we're here today to say it's time to bring those models of social housing back in New York City. And I'm going to tell you, yeah, all right, let's hear it for that. I'll get a little, just for 1 minute, a little like Comptroller wonky here because, social housing can function as what's called a public option in the marketplace. And you might think of that in universities or in healthcare where you got private options that work for folks who can pay, but the public option not only provides for those folks who can't afford something in the market, it sets a tone, it sets a floor, it makes the whole marketplace function better. And today, about 10% of the housing in New York City is owned in various forms of social or public ownership. So let's set this goal, y'all. Let's double that, okay? Let's go from 10% to say 20%. Not only would we provide affordable housing for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, not only could we recreate a 21st century model of that Mitchell-Lama housing so that working class black and brown families would be able to become affordable cooperative homeowners and build generational stability, but we would create a more sane housing market overall. And that's really what we're standing here to do. The bills you're going to hear about today, and I won't go into them because you're going to hear from their sponsors, would create the platform for the next generation of social housing in New York, and by doing so, help us build a New York City where every family knows they can find a safe, decent, affordable place to live, where our communities are more collectively under our control, where we build a safe, stable, affordable, and democratic future for all our communities. Thanks, y'all, for being out here. Can't wait to see these bills get passed.
Social housing now! Social housing now! All right, moving right along, we about to bring up a dynamic advocate from East Harlem, El Barrio. Athena, it's all right to clap for this dynamic advocate. Clap it up. Don't stop until you get on the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Good afternoon to my comrades and our supporters and allies. My name is Athena Bernkoff. I'm the project director at the East Harlem Barrio Community Land Trust. Many of y'all may know that about 10 plus years ago, the Cooper Square Land Trust was a bit of a unicorn in New York City, a unicorn of affordable housing, of community ownership. And look at us now, right? Can you feel our energy? Can you feel our drive, our determination to be in collective ownership of our homes, our land, our businesses, our community centers, our gardens, our environmental spaces, our green spaces? All of it will be ours, not because we want to profit, because we know that we need it for our well-being, for our families, for our communities. We are here to build something. And there's not a single group here that will say, all right, I'm going to take care of my building and then let it rock and walk away. Everyone is here to build something, an ecosystem that's going to spread across all the city. And where all of the boroughs are here, right?
Yeah, you know it.
And we're not stopping in New York City. We're going for the state. We're going beyond. We have a vision. The vision is clear. We want to clear the way to ownership that is meaningful, that is connected to actual community needs, that is tied to our well-being, that is tied to our need to stay where we want to stay in our communities and stay in our homes. And we're not going to stop until we get there. So Community Land Act is about building that infrastructure, is about tending to the roots of an ecosystem that can endure the gentrification that is determined to push us all out. The exploitation that is determined to crush our spirits and our souls. But y'all can see there's no crushing happening. We are strong, we are determined, we are rooted, we are grounded, and we will persevere. And we're not at the beginning anymore. We've been in this for a while. But if you can imagine that 10 years, we're here building legislation that can build out this ecosystem, watch us in 10 more years. All right. Thank y'all.
Pass the Community Land Act! Pass the Community Land Act! Pass the Community Land Act! Pass the Community Land Act!
Woo! Amazing. Thank you so much. I also just want to acknowledge Councilmember Aviles and our public advocate, Jamani Williams, as well as Councilmember Barron. So next up, a champion for these issues, our public advocate, Jamani Williams.
Thank you to our chair, Councilmember, the Comptroller. Thank you to the advocates and the organizations that are here. There's a problem when we monetize things that people need to the point that we're trying to make sure people make as much money as humanly possible regardless of what happens to human beings. And in healthcare, it means people die because they can't get the healthcare they need. And in housing, it means people die because they can't get the housing that they need. Last year, we've seen more homeless deaths than we ever have before. It has been decades and decades making sure that the corporate model of making as much money as humanly possible has brought us to this point. And as I'm sure it's been said, New York City now is currently the highest rental market in the entire country. I've seen some studies that suggest the world. That is abominable. The highest rental market. My office put out a report that showed that we have the most violations than we've ever had. So you are now paying the most for rent with the most violations. That's what our corporate model has provided right now. We cannot fix this problem while keeping the model the same, period. You can try to tinker with it. You can try to move this little piece over here. No, it will always lead to where we are. So we have to change the model of how we deal with housing. That's what the Community Land Trust does. That's what social housing does. I'm still trying to find another name for social housing because I know it scares people, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Housing for all. Yes, let's call it housing for all.
Let's do that.
We have a resolution I'm thankful is going to be heard that allow tenants to be able to purchase their buildings first. We have to take away the corporate model. We just have to, because people are dying because of it. And we went from black folks being excluded explicitly from fair housing to now black, brown, working class folks being excluded because they simply can't afford it. They both have the same effect. So we're pleading with people in the powers that be, from City Hall to the governor's mansion. I know you take a lot of checks from real estate, but the price of those checks are people dying on the street. It is not worth it. So please, we're begging you, all these things are saying is let's get the housing that is needed for the people who need it the most. We can and we must. Peace and blessing. Love and light to you all. Thank you.
Social housing now! Social housing now! Social housing now! Social housing now!
I got one.
All right.
When I say COPA, you say TOPA, COPA.
TOPA.
COPA.
TOPA.
COPA.
TOPA.
COPA.
TOPA.
All right, we're gonna get it done. We're gonna dance the whole way there. So next up, I wanna bring up Councilmember Ressler, who's a bill sponsor for Intro 637 regarding land disposition.
Let's do a little more chanting. We gotta warm up. When I say public land, it's for public good. Public land? For public good. Public land? For public good. What do we want? Social housing. What do we want? Social housing. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Social housing. When do we want it? Now.
The affordability crisis in New York City is worse than ever. 600,000 families pay a majority of their income in rent. 600,000 families.
That ain't right.
In my district across the river in Brooklyn, over a quarter of tenants pay a majority of their income in rent every single month. But if you go up to the West Bronx, to Purina's district, you'll find a majority of tenants paying a majority of their income in rent every single month. It ain't right. If you want to live in Manhattan, and I don't know why you do, I'm sorry, Gail, I love you. But if you do, if you want to live in Manhattan, $5,000 for an apartment. I don't know who can afford it. This is the crisis we are facing. Black families are leaving Brooklyn for the first time since the Great Migration. We've lost 15,000 Latino residents in Williamsburg and Greenpoint over the last 15 years. We need to start building the affordable housing that people can actually afford. We welcome Governor Hochul trying to build 800,000 units of housing. We welcome Mayor Adams trying to build 500,000 units of housing. But housing for whom? We need housing for us. We need housing for working people. And that is what Intro 637 will do. This bill was originally sponsored by Brad Lander, and I want to give Brad a special shout out. Brad has been such a tremendous leader on so many issues, but especially on affordable housing. And his vision around social housing is pushing this city forward. And I think it's also important to recognize the reason that we have this amazing package of bills getting heard today is because we have the best damn housing and buildings chair in the history of the New York City Council. And we have a really damn good one standing behind me in Jamani Williams. So that's how good Purina Sanchez is. You were good. I only love for everybody. I'm just starting fights. But let's look back at the previous administration's record. When public land was disposed of and redeveloped, 78% of it, the vast majority of it, went to for-profit developers. It didn't go to nonprofits. It didn't go to community land trusts. It went to for-profit developers. What does that mean? That means that we don't get the deeply affordable housing that we need, because when nonprofits got that land, they developed twice as much extremely low-income housing, very low-income housing, the housing that working people actually need. And that is what our bill will do. We will ensure that HBD, that the mayor, that the city of New York has to first go, when public land is being redeveloped, it has to first look to nonprofits. It has to first look to community land trusts. So organizations like Los Sures, organizations like St. Nick's, the amazing community land trusts that are sprouting up all over New York City will have an opportunity to build the housing that our communities need. We have 32 co-sponsors on this bill. We today are getting it heard with this amazing coalition support of the New Economy Project and so many other groups. We are going to get this bill passed, and we are going to make it law together. Let's make sure that public land is for public good.
Public land for public good.
All right. Right now, we're going to bring up another dynamic, awesome advocate from the Bronx that's going to touch on the importance of fighting back and fighting forward. In our community, we just got too tired of complaining, so we're just going to continue to fight on. So clap it up for Michael Johnson from Mott Haven, Port Morris, Community Land Stewards.
Thank you. Wow. I am so blessed, and we all are blessed to be here, and it's a revolutionary moment for change. We are all part of something trying to stop the cycle of harm that's plagued our communities for decades. Generation after generation has been plagued with what? Lack of affordable housing, lack of health and education, and quality of life enhancements in our communities. But we are here to pass this legislation, so we'll have an opportunity to move forward in a positive way to where our communities have a better opportunity to survive. We should have to fight so hard for what we all know is right. We should not have to fight so hard for what we know is logical, it's ethical. It's human. We're talking about equality and justice for our communities that have been left back and stepped on and planned on and not planned for. Our communities have been plagued with top-down decisions over and over again, expecting different results. Today, that is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different. But today, we're doing something different. In the South Bronx, we have to stand up and fight back. In Brooklyn, we have to stand up and fight back. In communities like ours, we have to stand up and fight back, else who will? We are blessed to have y'all with us. This is a revolutionary moment to have you all here with us. We've done this for years and decades, fighting to stand up and fight back by ourselves because it was necessary. Because we wouldn't have it any other way. Our children deserve different outcomes. They demand different outcomes. They demand to have the same kind of quality of life, non-dependent on the color of their skin or where they live or their economic status. We need justice. We need social justice. We need housing justice. We need environmental justice. And the only way we're going to get it is we stand up, we fight back, and we fight together. Yeah. This is a revolutionary moment here. Y'all witnessing history right now. We have to control our public land because it's not provided public good. If communities can have community-driven solutions and community-driven development, it will be the only what we've seen happen so far. Top-down development, giving all the land, public land, to friends of governors, friends of mayors, friends of those who have power. But we have the power. So let's switch this script. Public land for public good.
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 Thank y'all.
Amen. Amen. Now, I'm tired of something, personally. I'm tired of having to go back to my neighborhood and my community, and when my constituents and my neighbors ask me, so I saw this announcement today, what does that mean for me? So I saw that they're going to build thousands of units. Am I going to get one? I'm tired of the answer being no. I'm tired of not having solutions for my neighbors and for our people. That's right. And so the next acknowledgement goes out to a new mom, a fellow new mom, Councilmember Carlina Rivera. From last term and again this term, she's carrying the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. When I say COPA, you say TOPA. COPA? TOPA. COPA? TOPA. Yes, I just want to acknowledge Councilmember Carlina Rivera. We love you. Welcome to the Mommy Caucus. And we're going to get it done. Her Chief of Staff, Katie Loeb, is here. Thank you so much for being here. So next up, I want to bring up Councilmember Brewer, a sponsor for the Land Bank.
Thank you very much, and I want to also thank Councilmember Sanchez, because I'll talk about the land bank, but she's also agreed to have the head of the land bank in Atlanta zoom in today and talk about land bank, because we're not the first. You know, Brad Lander might think he was the first when he kindly introduced this bill, and I'm just picking it up. But the fact of the matter is, we have lots to learn from other cities. And I just want to talk about, quickly in one sentence, why we're in such a mess. We have lost thousands and thousands and thousands of units of stabilized housing because nobody was paying attention. We have lost thousands of units because they were bought out of Mitchell-Lama rental housing, and some of the co-op boards went private, unfortunately. And when we had tenant interim lease, it didn't all go to the right people in terms of keeping it affordable into the future. So all those mistakes cannot be made again. And unfortunately, we're here today to try to correct them with new toolboxes. But it's going to take everybody working together, because I have seen this before. So very quickly on the land bank bill, basically what it is exactly what it talks about. It is a situation in which a bank, which is nimble, transparent, can acquire, warehouse, transfer real property to develop and preserve affordable housing, and also commercial. We can make a park, we can make a theater if we're creative and talented. And how do you do it? Well, you figure out how to get from liens or from donations, even from the police department. You can get it from the U.S. Attorney's Office, wherever you can get land. And then you put it back into the way that is helpful to the community. It's a very different way. You can invest money, you can collect rent, you can sell it, you can charge fees, and you have to have a good director, and you have to have a board that is responsible and responsive to the purpose of the land bank. You can work with those in East Harlem. You can work with the folks who are working on land trust. You can do an MOU with them. The list is endless. And then you can do Wars Island. Yes, you can do Wars Island. I want to make Wars Island affordable housing. Anybody want to make Wars Island affordable housing? Anyway, so I'm here to say this is one tool in the toolbox. We need to pass it, and we need to make it as nimble and transparent and responsive as people in Atlanta and some of the other cities are doing. We can even do it better. Thank you very much.
All right, let's get that done. I used to work up in Newburgh, and they have a land bank, so, you know. So next up, just a complete champion for so many of these housing issues. I count myself so lucky to be in such a brilliant, no shade to the last class, a little bit shade, not that much shade to the last class. But Council Member Sandy Nurse, who today has, we are hearing 2 bills by her to promote a social housing agency and to pass good cause eviction at the state.
What's up, y'all? Let's keep some chants. When I say people, you say power. People. Power. People. Power. When I say Tanit, you say power. Tanit. Power. Tanit. Power. Tanit. Power. All right. All right, y'all. I'm so happy to be standing here with you all because we really are here to flip the script. We really are here to level the playing field. And today we are here demanding the policy tools that we need to defend and preserve our communities against the class war that is being waged against us by these Wall Street vultures. They are circling our communities. They are picking us off one by one. They're leaving carcasses all over our blocks. And we're not taking it anymore. We need these tools to give our communities a chance. We need these tools to give working class New Yorkers, low income New Yorkers, the ability to even stay here. They are building these mini castles, these mini luxury castles all over the cities. These are completely inaccessible to us as New Yorkers. So I am so proud to be here. I have 2 bills, as Councilmember Sanchez said. One would call for a study to require the city to study what a social housing development agency could look like. We need to know, how can it look? What does it need? What is the resources it needs? Let's do this right. Lastly, we have a bill to urge, a resolution to urge the state legislature to pass and the governor to sign good cause eviction. A long, long overdue bill. It is the single strongest, most important, most immediate thing we can do to protect New Yorkers right now who are struggling to find safe, secure, and truly affordable homes. It's the best thing we have to fill in the gaps while we figure out these long-term plans. So I'm so happy to stand with you. I'm happy to stand on the shoulders of some of our best legislatures, our best policymakers we have, the public advocate and our comptroller. And we have the best coalition that is driving this. This is not us driving this. This is you driving this. This is our communities driving this. This is working class New Yorkers who are taking time off their job to come down here and fight for the tools we need to defend ourselves. So thank you for what you do. Thank you.
People! Power! People! Power! People! Power! That's right, you know it. All right. Right now we're going to bring up another dynamic advocate, Depo from NHD, that's going to touch on COPA as a tool to expand and supply permanently affordable housing. Clap it up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Will. I'm a senior campaign organizer at ANHD. For those who don't know, ANHD is a membership org of over 80 orgs. Many of the groups today are actually ANHD members. They serve working class Black and brown and immigrant communities for decades. They have seen the challenges around housing for our communities, and they're fighting for it here today. And I'm glad to see CDCs and CLTs together today, fighting for housing as a human right. At ANHD, we believe housing justice is economic justice, is racial justice. We face a housing crisis, a homelessness crisis, and a migrant crisis, right? We need to ensure that New Yorkers, the most vulnerable, are housed. And we're gonna achieve this by building and sustaining deeply and permanently affordable housing. Mission-driven developers like CDCs have been doing it for decades. They've been investing in permanent affordability long before the city made their own requirements. They've been maximizing deep affordable ability. At ANHD, we support a social housing plan that's a vision that prioritizes development and deeply affordable housing, right? And we also know that CLTs and CDCs are the stewards of their community. They know what's happening on the ground. They know what's needed. And these legislations ensure that the land, the public land, and also the buildings that are warehoused go to CDCs and CLTs. We need to ensure that working class New Yorkers can stay in New York, right? We need our folks to stay here. That's right. Housing is a human right. It should not be for profit, right? Housing is a human right. And so I just want to end today by saying we need to urge the council to pass this legislation, and advocate for the funding and resources. It's one thing to get the legislation passed, but we need the money. We need to ensure the money is going to our people and to our communities. Thank you.
Pass the Community Land Act now. Pass the Community Land Act now. Pass the Community Land Act now.
Woo! So next up, I'm going to bring up a couple of my colleagues, but I just want to say, and I think I share this with most, or if not all, you know, we have to make sure that this conversation is building wealth for the historically excluded. That has to be a part of the conversation, and so we're gonna expand that. We're gonna hear all feedback and criticism today, but we're gonna get these bills passed, and we're gonna pass them in a way that centers that wealth building. So next up, I want to bring up Councilmember Aviles, Chair of Public Housing.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Are we feeling good? Yeah. That's right. So I just want to say these bills are the beginning, right? We have to pass these bills, but we are going to go much further. You cannot claim to believe in affordable housing and talk the rhetoric and then block these bills. All right? So we're going to call it out. If you undermine the passage of these bills, you are not for working class New Yorkers. If you undermine the work to preserve and to build on the public good, public dollars for public good, public housing for public good, public money for public good, all right? So I just want to say, let's pass these bills. This is only the beginning. I want to thank my colleagues for all the work that they've done. I want to thank you all for all the work you have done over the years, holding people accountable, calling out the nonsense when it's present, and pushing forward and making sure that we are not stuck in small visions, that we are not stuck in deficit mindsets. And as the chair of public housing, the New York City's greatest asset of social housing that holds poor working class New Yorkers, we must not forget about NYCHA. We must demand that the residents are front and center in everything that happens with NYCHA, not tokenized, not pulled in after the fact. We have to make sure that our public dollars are going for public housing. So with that, I want to say thank you again to all my colleagues. Let's get these bills done and let's move it much further. Thank you.
Right on, right on. Right on, right on, right on. So next up, I call him Councilmember OG, all right? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Councilmember Councilmember Barron, Uncle Barron.
Free the land.
Yes.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
For the people.
For the people.
February 21st marked the assassination date of Malcolm X. Malcolm X taught us that land is the basis of freedom. Land is the basis for freedom. So we're out here to fight for land. And I'm glad my colleague, Chair of the Public Housing, Alexa, mentioned NYCHA. We must tell, I know it's about HPD today, but HPD has to hook up with NYCHA, and we have to have residential management. No red, no PAC, and I don't trust the trust. So we got to make sure that we own it. Secondly, real talk, until these bills get passed, my colleagues don't have to pass any development project that's gentrifying our neighborhood. Until these bills are passed, my colleagues don't have to call the MIH, the Mandatory Inclusion Housing, which calls for 25% affordable and 75% market, something good. It is not. Until these bills are passed, do what we did in East New York. You know it. 100% affordable. We never voted for one market rate apartment in East New York. And with Brother Al and the Community Land Trust, we worked together with Community Board 5, and we said, in East New York, we are not gentrified. Somebody told me, yeah, Charles, but I saw 3 white people on the number 3 train. I said they were passing through. They were just visiting. East New York is not gentrified, and to my colleagues, once again, not 25%, don't pass something for 35% and say you raised the ceiling. And then somebody did one for 45%, oh, we raised the ceiling higher. Just ignored our 100%. The ceiling is 100% affordability for the people in our neighborhoods. Power is the great equalizer. Power is the great equalizer. We in the Black Panther Party, when we said power to the people, what we meant by that is in this city council, guess how many votes the mayor has on development projects? None. Guess how many votes the speaker has on the development projects? One. Guess who has the rest?
All of us.
Us. The people elected us to use our power for the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. I told you. That's OG Barron. All right, so next up, our final elected official office, I want to thank Congressman Nydia Velázquez for sending Jonathan.
All right, the clock.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Betancourt, and I am here on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, who again stands in solidarity with the community in support of Community Land Trust. I would also like to thank all the organizations who have advocated for this very important issue. There has never been a time like this when rents are out of control and we're seeing real estate developers, real estate investors, and real estate speculators contributing to the displacement of New York City's longtime residents and community institutions. It is known that nonprofit Community Land Trust can provide a solution for low-income working families who are in search of real affordable housing and home ownership. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, the Congresswoman wrote a letter to then Council Speaker Corey Johnson advocating for the continued funding of the Community Land Trust. The Congresswoman said it is one of those essential city programs that cannot be on the chopping block because it provides a safety net that tackles the disparities that the pandemic highlighted, like homelessness and income inequality. She has also called the creation of Community Land Trust a monumental progress. And today's hearings are an important step in moving forward with that progress. So it is time that we put people over profits. It is time that we preserve and create actual affordable housing. And it is time to pass the Community Land Act. Together we will fight the displacement of low-income New Yorkers, and we will address the affordability crisis in this city. And we will protect and expand the ability for members of our community to build generational wealth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public dollars for public good. I heard that right. Public dollars for public good. Public dollars for public good. I'm getting me a t-shirt on that. For real. Say that again.
Maybe a sweatshirt today.
Oh, no. I'm on fire today. I don't need that. I'm on fire. All right now we're going to bring up a dynamic individual, dynamic person that represents a dynamic organization. Dorca Reynoso from Housing Justice for All. Clap it up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm excited because I'm confident that the good cause bill will pass, the resolution for good cause will pass here in City Council. But my concern is with Albany. I expect and I demand that they pass the good cause eviction bill. They have to correct the harm that they have helped the real estate industry cause. We have been harmed for long enough. It's no longer time for talk and for saying that we're going to build housing. There are more than 89,000 vacant units in New York State. Okay? So you cannot tell us you're going to build more housing when you have vacant homes.
Right.
And people on house in this city. Since the mayor took office, there were 500 units in NYCHA vacant. After he took office, there's over 3,000 units vacant. You tell me why. And he's going to talk about, I'm going to build some more. For what? Use the ones that are already available. We're not taking this anymore. We expect the bill to pass, and we want it to pass this year. No more waiting. There is a saying that we say in Spanish, la necesidad es la madre de la invención. I guess in English you'll translate it to something like necessity is the mother of invention, or like right? So what they have done, they created a need in us. They have created need, and our need has created our power. You have created a need, and we're going to fight back. We are not stepping back. You're destroying our communities, and we know that we're deserving of better. Our children do not have to leave the city because we do not have money. We belong here. Our children belong here. Black women are suffering. People of color, our children. Why does my son have to leave New York? Because he cannot make $100,000 a year. Why? You tell me why. We demand that this good cause bill passes, and passes now. My assembly person, and I'm going to call you out, Manny de los Santos, you are not co-signing to the HABP bill. You have not. You canceled 2 meetings with me, and I'm calling you out right here. I need a meeting, and I need you to co-sign this. HABP, not just good cause, HABP and TOPA need to pass. We're done with you people. Just get it done this year.
Get it done! 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 You know it.
Thank you so much. Last up, we're gonna have my colleague, Councilmember Tiffany Caban.
Good afternoon, y'all. How you feeling? Good. I love seeing the New Economy Project, Western Queens Community Land Trust. My name is Tiffany Caban, and I'm a Shimby. Social housing in my backyard all day, every day. We want to make sure that New Yorkers have the ability to live, to thrive, not just to barely keep their heads above water. And it starts with passing a whole host of legislation at the city level, yes, at the state level, but we have power right here, right now, to strengthen tenant protections, to open up more housing stock availability, so many things. I think my comrade and my colleague said it best when he said, MIH ain't it. We need much better choices, much better options. So I'm really grateful for the relentless advocacy and commitment of the folks who have been leading and fighting in this fight for a very long time. And I'm really confident that we're gonna make some progress, not just here in New York City, but up in Albany as well, because we have the most valuable land on the planet. And the fact that we continue to just give it away to private developers and equity firms that extract and extract and extract from our communities, rather than have publicly owned, democratically controlled, tenant-powered housing infrastructure throughout our city. That's where we need to go. That's where we need to be. And we're not going to stop until we get there. So appreciate it.
All right, y'all. So this is going to conclude the cocktail hour of this wedding. All right. So we're about to start the hearing. We're gonna take just a few minutes to get into the chambers. Please join us. Please testify on the record if you can. Submit testimony. Help us to create the record for movement, positive forward movement, so that we at the City Council can pass these bills. Last word to my colleague here.
Like I said earlier, today is a great day for community wealth building. Today is a great day for economic justice. But there were some key statements that was made that have to be reinforced. Give a hand clap to the progressive, dynamic council members that's going to push these bills forward. Councilmember Barron, the verbiage that you stated, power is the great equalizer and the power is ours. I heard a total vote of at least 49-1, so it should pass this year. But most importantly, thanks to all the community advocates, East New York CLT, Western Queens CLT, El Barrio, nicely, the whole social housing justice movement, the whole economic justice movement, New Economy Project, and so much many more. But like I always stated to everyone, what are you going to do when there's no mic? What are you going to do when there's no camera? The real fight is when there's no camera and when there's no mic. What has been displayed has been decades in the making, and we will continue to fight. Real power, real people's power. Folks, you will not even remember my name or anyone else's name, but you're going to remember this movement. You're going to remember this day. So as I will always say, I leave everyone with peace and reparations. Thank you.
Housing is a housing is a housing is a human right. When I say COPA, you say TOPA, COPA, TOPA, COPA, TOPA. Housing is a human right. COPA, TOPA, COPA, TOPA. I should go into music. Let's go inside.